Good. All right. Welcome to Revolution Health. This is Dr. Jason Dean on a, Tuesday afternoon. I don't even know what the date is half the time. And we are so crazy, busy, productive in helping tons of people, Ginger and I, that you kind of forget what day it is. And welcome back to the show, Ginger Taylor, who is, a political vaccine family warrior who is constantly keeping track of everything going out there on how to protect your family. So Ginger, welcome back to the show.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. And so let's jump right in, only because we know each other a bit. You've been on the show before. And talk to me. We're going to probably kind of freestyle today because there's so much going on. And you are on social media a lot. And basically protecting families and looking out for people on what's going on. So tell us, what is new in your world in the politics of vaccinations?
Well, there is a lot going on. There's a lot going on right now and over the next couple months. And we are going to, in the run up to this election and with some things that are happening this fall, we really are going to ask families to kind of start paying attention and start getting involved and start getting active. We had something happen this weekend, which was just really kind of stunning, which is the New York Times put out an op-ed by a woman who is a pro-vaccine writer and has been for years. And it was as if she said, well, you know what, I've gotten a grant to really look into vaccine research, and I found out that, you know what, they are throwing the research and they're not reporting bad findings that they have, and they don't want to do research in case they find bad findings. And yes, Paul Offit is putting pressure on people to say, don't report bad findings. So how can I get that into the New York Times? So she wrote a piece basically saying, yes, there's a problem with the research, but it's the anti-vaxxers' fault because the researchers want to tell you the problems with vaccines so they can be safer ones, but they're so afraid that you won't vaccinate. Therefore, it's your fault that we are putting out bad research. I really honestly think that there's no way she really actually believes that because it's such a cart before the horse argument. But I think that she was like, oh, you know what, there's a problem. And how can I? And she did. She got it into the New York Times. Researchers admitting that they get bullied and pressured and ostracized when they find that there's problems with vaccines. So this is kind of another chunk falling out of the dam of this kind of cover up of the fact that no, vaccines are not perfect. Yes, people get hurt. Yes, people do get killed. Yes, they do increase miscarriages. Yes, there's safety reform badly needed. And it's so, they've swept so much stuff under the rug. The rug is, it's just a big pile in the living room at this point. Nobody can avoid it anymore. So to see this kind of piece being published in the New York Times is, it's a benchmark. It's something to pay attention to. So I have on my Facebook page, Ginger Taylor, The Politics of Vaccination, I've got this article and a bunch, anything I talk about today, I'm going to have up there. Go read this article, share this article. If you've got family members who are, liberals who believe the New York Times is just the paragon of all that is true, this is a great tool to share with them because it brings out, there's a problem in the research. Yeah, when parents are saying, I don't trust the researchers and I don't trust that, that what really is being put out is not vaccine safety research, it is sales information. So we have this great tool now that'll reach a part of the community that a part of the American population really just does not want to believe that there's a problem in vaccine safety.
Totally, absolutely. And it's interesting you brought the New York Times because I will, whether it's scrolling through a Facebook timeline or even just seeing something vaccine related. And it's actually interesting how I call them hit pieces, because basically what you're seeing a lot now is every once in a while, probably every month or so, you'll see an article from a New York Times, a Business Week, whatever it is, usually coming from the mainstream media. And you'll have this complete, and I think you have to be a critical thinker today. So if you're watching or reading any mainstream news, which I still see some myself, I'm sure you see some as well, is you have to learn how to critically think and critically read. And because if you read these, a lot of these journalists, and they'll call themselves quote unquote healthcare journalists, they're really not. They're just bloggers basically, or journalists hired to write these articles. And it'll be a very big slanted article towards, well, here are what the anti-vaxxers are doing. So you're seeing a lot of that, I'm sure, as well. But you also tell people how you have learned to basically be that critical reader and what you're looking for sometimes when you're seeing these done. Because if you read it from a neutral mindset, you're going to completely agree with them. And, oh my gosh, this is horrible. We have to vaccinate all 74 vaccinations. And they just put you in a fear mode. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they and New York Times piece highlights it, that we need to keep people afraid. We need to keep them more afraid of diseases than they are of vaccine injury. And I talk at length, when you are evaluating this or any other thing in life, you need to set fear aside. This is not about fear. It's not about which is the scariest. Is what is wise. Make decisions. There's an old proverb that says, when you make decisions based in fear, you often bring about the very thing you were afraid of in the first place. So setting fear of vaccine injury or disease or ostracization or losing your job, set those aside and say, what is wise in this moment? What is wise for my health? And when you start from that place, and then the scary things that they're throwing on you, you can kind of recognize them a lot more easily, because like, oh, that's just a scare tactic. Where can I find a kernel of fact that is checkable? You know, when you read these articles and you're seeing so much subjective, you know, this and pronunciations of that, find like a statement that is made and then go try to, something that's fact checkable, and go try to check that fact, and you kind of can radiate out from there. And for me, it was one thing. I read a package insert after my son got sick and after he regressed. I read a package insert because I think there's something wrong with that B shot he got. And I read it and I saw autoimmune. And I went, okay, isn't something about autism supposed to be autoimmune? And I started from there. And you kind of just have to, you know, once you kind of get a one truth, you can move out from there. But starting with throwing away the fear statements that are really kind of, once you look for them, they're easy to see. And look for the kernels of fact, and then do the research from there. And think about
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you actually mentioned something a little bit ago that I want to actually go into. We are heading into, I mean, we always say this, I think, the most intense election season imaginable. But I truly believe we actually are going into the most intense, because obviously we're coming off of a complete out of nowhere, quote unquote, victory with President Trump, which was completely shook the entire establishment, whether you love him or hate him. Everyone agrees it shook everything. Trump has talked about vaccinations. He is more, I don't want to say against him, but he knows that there's something going on there. Going into this election season, even though it's not for president, what do you see going down? Because you have been on Twitter, you have been going through this, you've been seeing what people are saying. What are you expecting and predicting going into this election season around the vaccine issue?
Well, there's not a ton of predicting you can do right now on the vaccine issue for this election. Although there is one super exciting highlight I want to tell everybody about.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll talk about more of this in next week. I am the head of the Maine Coalition for Vaccine Choice. And in 2012, I got involved with the Ron Paul campaign. And when I walked in the door, because he was vaccine choice, I'm like, all right, here we go. I walked in the door to volunteer, and the first person I met was a young volunteer named Eric Brakey, who was kind of lower in the campaign. And by the end of the year, by the election, he was the head of the Maine campaign for Ron Paul. And we got to be good friends. And he's a health freedom guy, but he was young. He was just out of college. So we talked a lot about health freedom. And then Eric he ended up getting elected to the Maine Senate. And then he got reelected to the Maine Senate. And then he became a very popular senator, and was able to get legislation passed that very few people could, because he's just a very nice young guy who loves freedom and loves liberty. And he now is running for the U.S. Senate. And so we have from Maine a young man who turns 30 tomorrow. Tomorrow's his birthday. And he is running against Angus King for a seat in the U.S. Senate. When we had our hearings in 2015, when they tried to take our exemptions and we had our own bill, he ended up being the head of the health committee and ran the hearings. And he was incredibly generous to everybody there and very gracious and handled them very well. And when we got done with that, when it came for the vote, I didn't even know he was going to do this, but he stood up on the floor of the Maine Senate. And I was watching, I was kind of recording on my, my computer and watching from home. And he stood up on the floor of the Maine Senate and gave a speech about the idea that where there is risk, there must be choice, and talked about the CDC whistleblower and talked about the vaccine injury compensation program and things that I had been saying for years. And we said in the testimony that I'm like, I didn't know that he internalized them and really, but he owned them. And I was floored. And so now we have somebody running for the US Senate who literally he's one of us. He joined the Maine Coalition for Vaccine Choice. He wants all health choice for our children and for families. He wants families to be able to use cannabis for their sick family members. He's somebody who is completely in our camp. And so right on my page right now, what they're doing tomorrow for his birthday is they're doing a money bomb for him. And I want to encourage you to, the website for the money bomb is breakybomb.com. His name is spelled B-R-A-K-E-Y. But I have a list, I have a link to his donations on my page. But he's somebody who I'm going to be talking online over the next couple of weeks about, is that, he's one of these people that if we say that that we want people who in the legislatures who are going to, support our freedom, it's time to either put up or shut up. This guy is somebody who, to hear that speech, and I'm going to make the speech loud, to hear that speech given on the floor of the U.S. Senate would be a stunning thing to do. And he's somebody who, he's young, he doesn't care. He just cares about freedom. He doesn't care about pharma. He doesn't care about lobbyists. He just cares about doing the right thing. So I really, for this campaign season, we don't have a ton, we've got a lot of local elections, and the Canary Party is going to start listing local and state representatives who have supported health freedom on our website and on our Facebook page. So please keep up there as we start finding out from states who are the people who have really gone to bat for our people. And especially in September and October, if you're in a state where you've got a good somebody in your legislature or your governor or anybody who's supporting health choice, you go to their campaign office, you volunteer your time, and you can knock on doors for them. And you spend at least one day and one afternoon knocking on doors and supporting that candidate, because that's what's going to get them and keep them in office. If you can donate, that's great, but especially for local candidates, go door knocking. You can either get involved in campaigns against, if you've got a Richard Pan in your area, find out who his opponent is and go knock on doors for that guy. Even if he doesn't support us, just to keep those people out of the legislatures. So it's important. You have to get involved in August, September, October, or 100 days to this election. So any of those candidates that you really need, go knock on doors for them and go to Eric Brakey's website. And what I'm telling people to do is, he understands that how the 1986 Vaccine Injury Act has robbed Seventh Amendment rights from Americans. So what I'm asking people to do is, if you go to Eric Brakey's website, donate in increments of 1986, either $1.90, just $19.86 if you're not a big money person. If you can do $198, that's great. If you can do $1,986, that would be great too. But just donate in quantities of 1986, so that every one of those that comes in, he knows are from people that want to get rid of the 1986 Act. And he's already started getting some of those, because I just started talking about it. So whatever you can do, his name is Eric Brakey. He's senator from Maine. He's running against Angus King. Anything you can do to support his campaign, get his message out, getting on his mailing list. If you've got family members in Maine, if you have people in Maine you care about, call them and say, hey, you need to take a look at Eric Brakey.
Excellent. I appreciate that. We'll get that information out there as well, because we want to support anybody for this cause that is willing to stand up to big government or even pharmaceutical companies anywhere else to have to get this thing handled the way it should be. Diving into, I want to get your take really quick on the Health and Human Services lawsuit that was not necessarily struck down. I know Del Bigtree's been talking about this, but I just want your opinion on what's happening there. I talked to Robert Scott Bell a couple weeks ago, got his little bit of opinion on it, but the awakening that at least helps bring. Obviously, it's not being pushed out to mainstream media, so the masses aren't necessarily seeing it, understanding it. But anything that you took from that you think is going to be helping people wake up a little bit?
Well, it's first of all, it's chipping away at the lie that vaccines are the most researched and the safest, blah blah blah, and they're not. We know that, but for them to have to put on paper, oh yeah, we've never turned in any of those reports, and that's just another arrow in our quiver. The other thing that it tells me is that lawsuits work. One of the phenomena I think that has happened, because we had our right to sue for injury removed, our the financial motivation for the legal profession to get behind us and help us has died. But we also have, it's like we've forgotten the idea that we can sue for other things. We can, the whistleblower lawsuit, for example, that is in Pennsylvania federal court and the on the MMR, incredibly powerful, and they're losing that, and it's going to be powerful when it's over with. And we need to be able to take a good look at what's going on at both the federal level and the state level, and start filing some lawsuits for information, for I think what would be powerful in the states is a bunch of people from every state getting together and saying, where is my right to an evaluation for a vaccine injury? If I go in and say, I think my child has had a vaccine reaction, and the doctors, which they always do, go, because they don't know anything about it, and they don't evaluate the child for a textbook, HHS vaccine injury table injury, then there should be a lawsuit there. Where is the right to an evaluation? Where is, there should be, medical boards have to have some sort of training in a state for a doctor on vaccine risk of vaccine injury. If they're not, why aren't they being sued? We've kind of forgotten that the states are really responsible for vaccine programs. The federal government makes recommendations and offers funding, but your state runs your vaccine program, and they teach your doctors how to behave. And they have just they're just completely absent. They recommend it, and then they don't do anything else. There's no follow-up. There's nothing. So why there aren't lawsuits there, I think we need to be filing. So I think we need, and I don't have money. I'm not a lawyer, but there's people out there with law degrees who can sit down and go, wait a minute, here's a problem in the state that we should have litigated on. Why aren't we doing that? So I kind of want people to think in that mindset of how can we use the law to put pressure on for information and for action in the fun parts of that vaccine safety.
Genius. And before we head off today, I have to ask the question we talked a little before we went on live, and it does have something to do with vaccinations, even though it's not directly involved, but it has to do with health, freedom, liberty, something you're a proponent warrior for every single day. But obviously in the last 2 days, I want to go around this. Last 2 days, some craziness has occurred between Apple, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. And it's Alex Jones of InfoWars. Now, I am personally a big Alex Jones fan, only because he was one of the people that helped me wake up a little bit at the beginning when I found Ron Paul, and then obviously had Trump on, things like that. And of course, obviously, he is a character. He knows how to market. He knows how to sell. He knows how to get attention. But unfortunately, in our world, we have to do that because what we're talking about, we're considered crazy by many. But even deeper than that, being stripped off of YouTube, being stripped off of all of these mediums. Tell me a little bit about what you've been thinking. You've been covering it on your news feeds, your Twitter, but what this ramifications are going forward of having someone like Alex Jones. And just today, we now have one of the people who's in charge, helping executive the Ron Paul Institute, as well as the Tommy Robinson guy, who we don't know a lot about. But now we have, ever since Alex, a day or so ago, we now have several others in the liberty movement who have been banned and taking off all of these social media outlets. So give me a little bit of feedback on that, because I want to know what you're thinking in regards to this freedom of basically information at this point.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Alex Jones fan just because he's so bombastic. And so,
sure.
And I'm so in love with, we have to get all of our information perfect on vaccines because they can attack us. And he's kind of all over the place on that. And so, I think of him as kind of a dog who barks at everything. He's right some of the time, but he barks so much I can't hear. And, but he does, but I have learned things from him before, and I kind of would blow things off. And then I heard something, I should check that. And I was like, oh, he's right. So, I think the Alex Joneses of the world certainly have a place. He makes some people angry. But I don't, as long as you kind of have a screen to kind of filter the loud and the big.
Right.
This is kind of the beginning of a whole nother wave of litigation and of lawmaking around the digital public square. And are these, I wrote a piece on this actually that's going to go on to Age of Autism tomorrow. But the big question is, are these digital outlets, are they magazines who are editing, therefore they're responsible for the content? And if so, they need to throw people off, or are they public, are they public bulletin boards where everybody can go to, in which case you can't deny access from people. The Twitter has started shadow banning conservative members of Congress, which seems to only be flicking me in the head and asking them to be regulating their, the Democrats want to put in content filters. So it's annoying because I kind of with Alex Jones, he's so loud, and I'm kind of he's like, there's a war for your mind, and I'm like, and then this happens, and I'm like, you're proving him right because you're throwing him off the air, and it's like a digital war now of information, and I was like, well, he named his channel aptly, that's for sure. But regardless of what you think of him, the fact that that's where they start. First they come for Alex Jones. First they come for the communists. First they come for the guys that nobody likes and has the biggest backlash. And where that goes next is the question. And we're certainly on this list because I don't think, they're calling it kind of a conservative purge. I think of it more as the people who are mouthing off to the globalist purge. And that includes, Bernie socialists and a lot, environmentalists and a lot of other people who just aren't on board with the program that the planners kind of want for you. So I wrote today a piece and just said, guys, we're on that list somewhere. Don't depend on Facebook being there. Don't depend on your local Facebook vaccine groups being there forever. Make sure you have mailing lists with physical addresses and everybody's email address. Make sure you're on lots of different platforms. And I listed all of my social media stuff on other platforms. Make sure you're diversified because you don't know what's going to go on. But there's a couple places like Gab and BitChute who are incredibly committed to free speech to the point where they've got obnoxious stuff on there, but nobody's going to shut down. So make sure you have accounts there because you're not going to get shut down. You're not going to get locked out. So it's going to turn into the Wild West, and we need to not panic and just kind of do the best we can to stay connected. But while we're still on, I want to talk about one other thing because there's an important book coming out next month on September 19th. J.B. Hanley's, who many of you may know, has written a book called How to End the Autism Epidemic, and it's good. I have a copy that I'm reading now, and he really goes through it systematically. Yes, there's an epidemic. Yes, autism is real and it's increasing. Yes, here's the research that shows vaccines are related. And he kind of just dismisses all of the garbage and really gets down to, okay, let's fix the problem. And so we're going, it's a book that we need to get onto the New York Times bestseller list. So we're asking everybody, get online, go on Amazon, buy an advance copy. And then sign up. Jenny McCarthy actually decided to organize a push where everybody in every city, have somebody in every city who is organizing a push on a certain day to go to, on a certain week, to go to the biggest bookstore and have everybody go that day and buy that day so that we can kind of have a crescendo of people buying to push it up onto the bestseller list. So this can really get the attention that it wants. And they've are designing kind of a bunch of things coming out in September and October around this book. So in the fall, like I said, so start paying attention and I'll make sure I'm keeping my Facebook page, The Politics of Autism, updated. The Politics of Vaccination updated. But for the rest of this year, have a nice, early August, and have a relaxing end of summer, but kind of get ready to do some engagement.
Great. Thank you for that information. And do me a favor. I want you to post the links to that Amazon book for J.B. Hanley because it is probably fantastic, and I want to get my hands on it as well. And we'll reach out to him, but put that down there because I want to make sure everyone who sees this is able to get access to that. And before we head off today, do me a favor, tell everyone where they can find you, where they can watch you in your Twitter wars and your education of all the families out there. Where can they go after you, Ginger?
Sure. You can find me on Facebook at Ginger Taylor, which is my personal page, and Ginger Taylor, The Politics of Vaccination, which is my public page. I have my Twitter account is Ginger Taylor. My Gab account is Ginger Taylor. My MeWe account is Ginger Taylor. Ginger Taylor Autism or Ginger Taylor Vaccinations, you will find me. Twitter has been interesting lately. I posted a bunny rabbit meme that just said vaccines cause autism, and Twitter exploded. So there's plenty of conversation there. If anybody wants to jump in and have conversations with people who really know nothing about this issue. I mean, the people who responded some of them are kids. Some of them are just like asking the most basic answers. So we've been able to actually with all the trolls, come in and kind of educate some people who really just didn't know any better. So it's been a kind of a good opportunity.
I vote for Ginger to start her own online show like this and to start her own podcast so that she can spread this far and wide. Well, Ginger, thank you very much for being on the show today. Thank you for your knowledge, your information, and thank you for the energy that you put in to everyone out there and spreading some truth and trying to help save families. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And so go on there, find Ginger online and her social media handles. Go also subscribe to my page, also the Revolution Health page and the podcast. Subscribe, go out there, give reviews on this because it will tell other people to be listening to this so they can also be educated. So thank you for your Tuesday afternoon viewing time with myself and Ginger as she heads off to tackle more of the politics of vaccination and educate as many families as possible. You guys have a great day. This is Dr. Jason Dean signing off for Revolution Health. You guys have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
Bye.